Well, hi guys. What I want to talk about today is, and I'm kind of a little raspy, sorry about that, but I want to talk about the idea of hypervigilance. It sounds so big and so serious, but I first heard this term in my yoga teacher training, and they were saying that it's important to look for students who are hypervigilant, and it's not necessarily a positive. And this kind of shook me up because I am the student who wants to do it right and wants to get a pat on the back and wants to get the teacher's attention because I'm doing all the things to be a good student. But in the yoga world, if you're being hyper vigilant, it means that you're probably tensing your muscles. You're thinking too much about what you're doing. You're being performative. You're existing outside of your body instead of being in a flow, being in a relaxed state, focusing inward and not caring what people think about outside of you. And this kind of blew my mind because I've always been an athlete, a student, a people pleaser, trying to do it right, trying to get that pat on the back. And I was now learning about it from the other standpoint of like, look for those students because they need support and not support and pats on the back. Like, look how great you're doing it well, but more like, how can you release more? How can you let out of the position more? How can you use props? How can you make it easier on yourself? And then I was like, ding, ding, ding. That is the nugget of all the work that I do. And that word just made me realize like it's all tied up in not just people pleasing, because that makes it sound like if you're a high performer or high achiever or hard worker, it sort of minimizes the work that you do and how amazing you are and what a badass you are. But there is this level of, with the people that I work with, and also reflecting on my own journey and my career and my journey with yoga too, and basically all the other sports that I've ever done, is like, I want to do it well. I want to perform. I want to look like I'm doing it well, not from like an ego standpoint, but just because I want to do, like, I'm competitive. Like, I want to do things at the highest level I can possibly do them. But there's this need for recognition or this need for getting a pat on the back. And it's not bad. I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking for that. But what drives people like us into burnout is that if we don't get that pat on the back and we don't get the validation, we keep trying to prove and we keep trying to prove and we keep trying to get that pat on the back. And it might be from a manager who's not great. It might be from a coworker who's just not paying attention. It might be in an environment that just doesn't give pats on the back. And then we're like proving, trying harder. How do I get the pat on the back? And what I want to help you understand is that hypervigilance and competing and proving your worth and showing up at that high achieving level all the time is not getting you the rewards that you're hoping for. And I know this to be true. And I know you're shaking your head like, dang, I've been putting so much into this and I haven't been getting the same thing out of it. So, how do we make that shift? When we use yoga as a metaphor, so much of that practice is about who you are in the moment. You might show up for a practice and you might be energetic and ready to go and doing all the hardest poses and doing headstands and handstands and wheels and all the things, right? And you might be ready to do that one day, and the very next day you might have no energy. And so much of that practice is just showing up anyway and having your own back and not pushing yourself when there's no need to push. So like I had a little minor shoulder injury. In my old days, I would have shown up, I would have done all the hardest things anyway, and I would have pushed through the pain and I would have iced it afterwards. And like, I don't want to appear weak. And now that I'm older, I even have more of that because I'm like, I don't want to be the one in the class that can't do the stuff. Like, I want to show up and I want to do it all. And in my old days, I would have just pushed through the pain, pushed through the pain, pushed through the pain, prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself. And now I'm like, for what? Nobody's paying attention. Nobody is looking at me in that class. Nobody cares. And they shouldn't, because if they're looking at me, they're not thinking about, or hopefully not thinking, and just turning inward and having their own practice and their own experience. Now, at work, it's harder to apply these principles. It's not, but your brain is going to try to convince you it doesn't work like that, because you need to prove yourself. You need to be competitive. You need to perform. You need to show up in all those ways. Yes, and there is a way to show up in your best form, some good days, some bad days, having your own back, but turning inward and knowing that you are good at your job, whether you're doing a handstand or not. You always create value because your value is inherent in who you are and how you show up. And I know this because if you're listening to this or you've worked with me, you are a hardworking, high-achieving, ambitious, most likely woman. Maybe not. That's great. I'm so glad you're here because we need more men in this world, in this space of paying attention, being self-aware. So stay. But there's a way to do all that without pushing yourself into pain. And how do we do it? Well, breathing. So, and this might seem really like a weird thing to say, but we hold our breath and we hold tension in our body and we carry that around. And then we get home and we're like, oh, why can't I relax? Why can't I relax? Well, your muscles have been tensing all day long. That tension is like in your fascia, which is, all of the material that connects your muscles to your bones. It just is in there, holding on. And this is why we have weird posture. This is why our necks hurt. This is why we have low back pain, because we hold all this tension and we can't let go of it. I just want to bring awareness to this tension, to this pushing, to this working through the pain. What if you pulled back a bit? This is kind of like at the heart of all the work that I do. What if you were in a yoga class and you didn't do the full-on push-up every time with your knees up? What does it mean about you? This is the conversation we have with ourselves. Well, if I do it with my knees up, I'm weak. I'm lazy. I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. Nobody's going to think I'm strong. Nobody's going to think I have power. Nobody's going to think I'm good enough. Well, let's just translate that into you are thinking all those things about yourself. You are thinking that if you put your knees down for a push-up, that somehow you're weak, lazy, not good enough. So how do we reframe that? How do we put ourselves in a position where it's like, even if I put my knees down, I'm still strong. I'm still capable. I'm still powerful. Some days I'm going to do it with my knees up. I'm not always going to take the easy way out. I mostly never do. So I'm going to take the easy way, the easier way, because I never do. And I want to try it. I want to try it on. I want to see how it feels. I don't have to commit to it. But I'd like to know if I could do a whole class with my knees down and how I would feel afterwards. I did this yesterday. I'm nursing this shoulder thing. I decided I'm going to keep my knees down the whole class for the push-up portion. If you know yoga, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know yoga, just imagine you do a bunch of push-ups and you can do push-ups with your knees up. You can do push-ups with your knees down. Men and women have both options, right? But we try to take the harder option. And I just decided at the beginning of class, I'm just going to put my knees down. I'm going to go easy because if I start with my knees up, I'm going to push myself too hard and I'm probably going to walk away with an injury. And I don't want an injury. It took weeks for my shoulder to heal. I don't want to go back there. Okay. And this is how I feel about work. I don't want people to go back to that habitual pattern of pushing themselves into pain. I want you to know how it feels to take it easier, because it will start to create relief and space, and it's going to release tension in your body. This is what happens. And it starts in your brain. It starts with understanding, where in the day are you holding your breath? Where in the day are you holding tension in your body? There's no judgment. There's no shame. These are deeply ingrained patterns. It's all kept you alive. It's put you in the place where you are in your career, in your family life, all the things. It's served you. But now that pain is catching up with you. It's making you tired. It's making you unable to do some of the other things. You've pushed through pain for too long. Start to notice the patterns. Start to notice the breathing, holding of breath, the muscle tension. Start to notice where you're like, I need to push harder. Because that's not always the answer. Even business owners are like, just push harder, push harder. Well, you might be pushing on the wrong things, and that's why you're not having the results that you want. You have value. I want you to, besides the awareness, I want you to write down all the ways that you create value at work. Don't hold back. Brag. Nobody's going to see this piece of paper. You might want to show it to somebody because you're like, see, give me a pat on the back. Look at all the things I'm doing. I want you to start giving yourself pats on the back. I do firmly believe that managers should recognize the talent of their people. That is a critical component of retaining talent. So I'm not saying we need to dismiss them, but right now you're working on building your own funnel of recognition, pats on the back, confidence, really believing in yourself and standing up for yourself. So just where are all the places where you could make things easier? Put your knees down. Decide when you show up at work tomorrow that the whole my calendar is full thing is a farce, because you can move things around. And I know you're like, no, I can't. Yes, you can. Because if you were sick, you would move those things around. So move things around on a day where you're like, today's my knees down day. Today is a day where I'm going to take it easy. And you don't have to only do that when you're feeling sick or you're feeling off or it's not your best day. Do a knees down day when you have tons of energy, when you feel really good, where you feel like you could take on the world. Because what you're going to do is you're going to train yourself into managing your energy. Just because you have tons of energy that you could expend at work and trying to prove and getting recognition and all of that, you might use all of that great energy and then get home and be completely tanked when the people who love you and also deserve the best part of your energy, you're going to have used it all. So take a knees down day. Start to notice where you're holding your breath, where you're holding tension in your body. Just bring awareness to these things. This is always the first place that we go. And even if you've worked with me before, if you've worked with a coach or you're doing mindfulness training, we still forget. It's a lifelong process, these things. So you can always go back to the foundation, which is, am I holding my breath? Do I need to breathe more? These are things you can do at work and nobody's going to know. You can breathe like everybody breathes. It's not like you have to do an om. Just notice, am I breathing? Like, okay, I'm going to breathe a little deeper. I'm going to breathe into my belly. I'm going to let the breath fill me up. Like, you can take a 30-second breath break. Just remind yourself, like, yeah, I'm holding all my breath, or I'm breathing like really shallow. Is my posture weird? Do I need to get up and take a break? Do I need to take a walk? I need to do that right now. I was like, grind. I'm like, I have all these things I need to finish. Mandatory walk. I already did my workout, but I need to just get up and like move my body. And I need to like get some circulation going. I need to take a walk. So I'm going to cut myself off after this. I'm not going to do all the millions of other tasks that I could just sit down and finish. I'm going to go take a walk. These are the priorities, right? These are the ways that we start to change patterns. When we want to do the thing, we do the thing. You want to take a walk? Go take a walk. Don't make excuses for why it's not allowed. Oh, it's going to slow down my productivity, all these things, right? You know that those things are not true and you've just been using them as an excuse for a while. So if you're listening to this, maybe you're already on a walk. Good for you. Maybe you are, I don't know, getting ready for work. Put it in your calendar now. Get online. Drop a little, an hour-long walk in your calendar. No excuses. You don't have to tell people why you're taking a knees down day. But you need to train your mind that it doesn't mean you're lazy, that it doesn't mean you have less value, that it doesn't mean that somehow you're not capable or good enough. We're retraining all those things. Why are we doing that? You're going to laugh, but this is how we break down the ways of working that have been established for as long as we can remember by a certain class of people who are trying to oppress their workers so that they can stay at the top. This is an old paradigm, right? We don't shift the paradigm. If we stay in the role of the subservient, right? If we stay in that role, we're going to perpetuate this cycle forever. I'm not saying you have to go and have, anarchy and chaos in the workplace. What I'm saying is start to detach yourself from this being something personal, something about your self-worth, your self-confidence. Start to detach those two things. Your full identity does not have to be tied to this job. I'm not saying leave your job. I'm just saying start to understand that the way you show up at work could be indicative of some old personal patterns or some paradigm patterns. And why would you want to give the best part of yourself to something that is not giving the best part of itself to you? If you're not a partner in the business, if you're not getting incredibly abundant salaries at the level where it makes sense that you have to grind, right? I'm talking I don't even know what that salary would be. For some people, there's not enough money for them to grind themselves to a pulp or get sick, right? There's just not a number that pays for that. But maybe there is for you. If you're making that number and you have a reason, okay, then you can work harder. I'm not saying you don't work hard. I hope you understand the gist of what I'm trying to get to here. Some people, there's a number. I'll work hard for that number. I'll grind myself to a pulp for that number. If you're not making that number, pull back. Notice where you're giving too much, where you're being performative, where you're being hyper vigilant for the wrong reasons. Be hyper vigilant with your family and pull back a little bit at the job. It doesn't mean you're incapable. It doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean that you're not valuable. You're all those things. This is a little bit of a mindset shift of getting out of that high achieving energy and into the, if I put my knees down, I still have as much value and I shouldn't have to work more or get paid less if I'm taking a knees down day. Doesn't mean anything. Try it out. See what it means for you, what a knees down day is, how you show up at work differently if it's a knees down day. Notice. Don't judge. Just take note of all the things I talked about today. Let me know. Let me know if it's working. Okay, quick one. I hope it settles. I hope it marinates. I hope it makes an impression over the rest of this week into next week. And I will talk to you then.